I can't recall the exact instant the car lost control, only the howl of tires and the gut punch of metal collapsing on metal. My skull hit the steering wheel. When I came to, smoke was rising from the hood and the night air tasted sharp. Somehow I pulled myself out, dragging the useless leg. My palms were raw from gravel. When I finally reached my parents' front steps, pale and shaking, I let myself believe for a moment they might help. I collapsed at the door, half-conscious, whispering, "Mom, Dad, help me." Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching this video from. The door opened and there they stood, ready to leave, my father in a crisp shirt, my mother wearing that sparkling necklace. For a fleeting second I felt safe. Then my father stepped right over me like I was nothing but trash in his path. "Don't bleed on the rug," he muttered. My mother's heels clicked close to my ear. She glanced down, curled her lip, and laughed. "Pathetic, crawling like some stray mutt. We don't have time for this. Dinner reservations." I reached for her wrist, desperate, and she jerked away. "Don't touch me. You'll ruin my dress." My voice broke. "Please. I think something's broken." Dad leaned in, his breath hot with scorn. "You're always broken. Tonight at least you're out of the way." They stepped around me, their perfume and cologne drifting as they closed the door and locked it from the outside. Through the window I watched them laugh together as they walked to the car. My sister followed, snapping a photo as if it were just another glamorous night. The engine thundered and they drove off. I lay there on the porch, half alive, staring at the ceiling I'd grown up beneath, and the truth I'd ignored for years settled over me. They didn't merely hate me, they wanted me gone. I dragged myself back to the wreck, managed to flag down a stranger who called an ambulance. In the hospital while the doctors worked, my mother's words replayed in my head, "Pathetic, crawling like a stray mutt," and my father's voice echoed, "At least you're out of the way." That night something inside me hardened. I realized I'd spent my life waiting for their love, their approval, and they would never give it, not when I was a child, and not while I bled on their doorstep. So, as the Ford dripped into my arm, I made myself a promise. If they could walk away from me like I was nothing, I would make sure one day they had nothing left to come back to. And this time, I wouldn't crawl. Recovery wasn't only about mending bones, it was about forging armor. My jaw was wired, my ribs bandaged, my leg braced, every breath was pain, every step a fight. But the physical hurt paled next to the memory of that night, my parents' laughter as they stepped over me like I was a rug. They never visited me in the hospital. My mother texted 3 days later, "Stop milking it. You're alive. Be grateful." My father didn't bother at all. My sister posted pictures from fancy restaurants with captions like, "Family first." I lay in that bed and stared at those photos, remembering her giggle as she strode past me, bleeding on the porch. "When you're discharged," the nurse said softly, "someone will need to pick you up." I laughed, bitter. I already knew no one would come. I wheeled myself out, hailed a cab, and returned to my tiny rented room, bruised, stitched, forgotten. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I began to plan in silence. Nights stretched on forever. The painkillers barely took the edge off the aching. Still, they gave me space to think. If they believed I was fragile, I'd let them keep that illusion while I quietly stripped away everything they worshipped. I turned over what mattered most to them. Not me, not my life. They worshipped status. My mother paraded her jewels, her hosted dinners, the picture-perfect family facade. My father boasted about his business ties, his impeccable standing in town, how people greeted him at church and called him a man of principle. They wanted admiration, envy, applause. That's where I chose to strike. First, I started probing the business Dad ran. From the outside he seemed untouchable, the prosperous small-town entrepreneur with a flawless reputation. But as I asked quiet questions, assembled clues from public records, and caught whispers in places I knew they never looked. Fissures appeared. Unpaid invoices, loans taken out in my name years ago without consent, forged signatures. It wasn't mere neglect. They'd been siphoning me dry for years. I collected everything: bank statements, receipts, even screenshots of my sister showing off things online that had been bought with debts shoved onto me. Every sting of betrayal became a page in a file I put together. Carefully, not for the police, not for public shame, but for myself, for leverage. At the same time, I started rebuilding my life. Physically, I pushed myself harder than I should have. I went from a walker to crutches, to a cane, to walking without help. Each step felt like reclaiming ground they assumed was lost forever. Professionally, I threw myself into work. I took extra shifts, accepted new projects, climbed beyond the whispers that labeled me the poor kid from the Johnson family. I didn't correct those whispers. I let people assume I was invisible, nothing, because people like my parents never look down until it's too late. The first test came at a charity gala. I wasn't invited, of course, but I went anyway, tucked into the back in a rented dress, melting into the crowd. My parents stood front and center, my mother heavy with jewelry, my father booming with laughter, shaking hands, my sister draped over her boyfriend's arm like she owned the room. They didn't even see me. But others did. Quietly someone murmured, "Isn't that their other daughter? The one they never mention?" Those words fed something inside me. I smiled, nodded, and slipped away before they could notice. I didn't want a scene, not yet. I needed timing. For weeks I watched from afar, learning their patterns. When they boasted of dinners, I noted the restaurants. When my father spoke at church, I sat in the back pew, listening to his empty sermons about family values. When my mother crowed about the sacrifices she made for us, I swallowed the bile and let her shovel her own grave. They had no idea I was already scripting the ending. And I decided it would occur not behind closed doors, not in whispers, but where they broadcasted their perfection the loudest, at Christmas. Every year they hosted an extravagant party. People from church, my father's colleagues, my mother's friends, my sister's circle of superficial admirers. They dressed the house in golden lights, towering trees, and a spread fit for 3 families. It was their stage, and I planned to rip the curtain down. So I prepared. I printed documents, copied receipts, highlighted every forged signature, every debt listed under my name. I even kept screenshots of the texts they'd sent me while I was still in the hospital. Mom's cruel, stop milking it. Dad's silence. I collected photos of myself during recovery, bruised, stitched, mouth wired shut, while they were dining in glittering restaurants. I made certain there could be no doubt. Then I tucked everything carefully into an envelope. The guest list had already been posted online. They loved to flaunt the names of who would be there. I circled the date on my calendar in red ink. As Christmas approached, the anger inside me sharpened, settling into something steady, something icy. The night they left me crawling and bleeding. They believed they'd stepped on me for the last time. But now it was my chance to walk over them. Christmas night arrived draped in gold. Their mansion sparkled like a stage set, every light winking, every wreath impeccable, every window glowing with a warmth that was never mine. I paused at the end of the driveway, watching guests stream inside, listening to their laughter, their greetings, the clink of champagne glasses. My chest tightened, not with fear but with control. I entered through the front door as if I belonged, because, in truth, I did. Every corner of that house had been paid for with the money they'd squeezed from me, the credit cards they had signed in my name, the debts I had covered. Yet I had always been a ghost there. Tonight the ghost would speak. The living room was crowded, Dad booming his laugh by the fireplace, an arm slung around a business partner. Mom spun in her emerald dress, flaunting her necklace as guests praised her sacrifices for her children. My sister showed off her new engagement ring, shrieking for attention. None of them noticed me at first until I cleared my throat. The music dipped, heads turned. My mother's smile froze. My father's hand fell from his friend's shoulder. My sister whispered, "What's she doing here?" I crossed to the center of the room, drew an envelope from my bag, and placed it on the grand piano where everyone could see. My voice was calm. "Merry Christmas." Dad tried to regain control first, puffing up. "We didn't expect you. This is a private event." I cut him off, my tone sharper than glass. "Oh, I know you didn't expect me when I crawled to the door with broken ribs either. You stepped over me then, but tonight I'm standing." The room fell silent. A murmur ran through the guests. Someone muttered, "What does she mean?" I opened the envelope slowly, spreading the contents across the piano one sheet at a time. Bank statements, credit card records, forged signatures, text messages, photos of me in a hospital bed while they were out for dinner. Every lie they'd hidden beneath their golden lights exposed in black and white. Gasps sliced the air. A woman near the front clapped a hand over her mouth. A man breathed, "Good God." Mom lunged forward, hissing under her breath, "Stop this now. You'll ruin everything." I leaned and so only she could hear. Exactly the point. Dad lunged for the papers, but a guest beat him to it and hoisted one up to read aloud. His voice trembled with revulsion. This is your daughter's hospital discharge form, while you were out spending money." Silence slammed into the room, then unraveled into murmurs, fury, disbelief. My sister stammered, "She's lying. She's always been jealous." I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit play. Their voices spilled into the room with brutal clarity. Mom's laugh, pitiful. Crawling like a stray mutt. Dad's sneer, "You're always broken. Tonight at least you're out of the way." The recording thudded through the speakers, bouncing around their immaculate home. The place blew up. Gasps, expletives, people retreating. Color drained from my parents' faces. Mom clutched her necklace as if it might save her. Dad tried to bellow over the tape, but nobody paid him any mind. Friends turned and left. Dad's business partner muttered, "You disgust me," and exited. Mom's closest friend flung her wine into her face and stormed out. Even the priest from their church looked at them with pity and contempt before slipping away in silence. My parents' world disintegrated in minutes, not because I screamed, not because I begged, but because I let their own cruelty expose them louder than any protest I could muster. When the last guest slammed the door behind them, only my mother's ragged sobs and my father's labored breathing filled the quiet. They faced me, their voices shaking in a way I'd never heard before. "Please, Dad," he whispered, pride stripped away. "Don't do this. You'll ruin us." Mom's hands trembled. We can fix this." I pictured the gravel digging into my skin, their laughter fading as they drove off that night. My voice stayed even, almost icy. "You already ruined yourselves. I only turned the lights on." I walked away, leaving the papers scattered across the piano like ash. Behind me, my father's voice cracked, not with anger now, but with pleading. "Don't go, please." I didn't look back. Outside, the winter air bit, clean, sharp, and mine. For the first time, I wasn't crawling. I wasn't waiting. I was free. They were the ones left bleeding, not on the pavement, but in the ruins of everything they cherished. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.